right, hello everyone. Welcome to ISC West 2018. We're here with SSN TV, and I've got Jim Deering and Blake Kozak from IHS Markit, a research firm. And I'd like each of you to kind of tell me your role at IHS. We'll start with you, Jim.
Okay, sure, yeah. So I'm the lead access control analyst for IHS Markit. I cover the market for electronic access control, and I'm also currently working on a new report that covers the consumer video surveillance industry. So everything that's sold in the retail sales channel on the video surveillance side.
Okay, great. And Blake?
Yes, I'm Blake Kozak. I'm our lead analyst for Smart Home. I also cover alarm monitoring, so in that research we look at everything from device makers and business models and platforms and kind of how traditional markets are moving more into connectivity.
Okay, great. Now, the show, I know, what are your first impressions of the show? What are some of the things that you found or come here to look for? As you know, I know research is obviously your forte, but what are some of the things you look at when you come to a show and first impressions of the show so far?
ICWS is probably probably the most important trade show that we attend in terms of the number of people we can visit in one place is fantastic. Learning about all the new technologies that are being brought to market. And it's a really good show. I mean, I've seen quite a few new areas or new companies we haven't seen before here as well, which is very exciting.
Yeah, Blake, what about you? What are some of your first impressions?
It seems like there's just a lot of focus on video right now, and a lot of focus on displays and panels and having a lot of options for the consumer. So we'll see how that plays out over the next few years in terms of confusion for dealers and other channel partners and such, how it's not just understanding, one product anymore, and just hardwired system. It's low power wireless. There's hybrid systems. There's self-contained systems. There's dozens of different touchscreen options. There's DIY bundles. There's a lot of different products and a lot of different trends hitting a lot of these folks who have been very kind of had an expectation for the last 20, 25 years, and now things are just really starting to move quick.
Yeah, that's a good point. And going back to you, Jim, for what you're doing on the research side, what are some of the things that you're seeing that are going to impact or influence the industry, especially on the, obviously on the research side, maybe some recent research that you think, or even moving forward, that's going to influence the industry?
A number of things really that are quite exciting. On the electronic access control side, I mean, we're seeing now more suppliers introduce, for example, mobile credentials to their offerings, where they're trying to look at the potential for replacing or just adding a new credential to the ecosystem. So maybe the ability to use your smartphone to enter the building. So I mean, that's new, and it's something that's sort of being pioneered and kind of exciting. Another thing that we're seeing more of now is logical integration for the access control system. So instead of having a single database on site where a receptionist manages it, we're seeing that credentialing process being actioned from a higher authority. So for example, a corporate directory. So this is one of the new sort of ways that people are speeding up the onboarding process, and it's going to be interesting to see how people develop that over the next few years. Yeah,
you're right. The whole mobile credentialing thing, right? Is that it's going to be an acceleration, I would think, over the next couple of years, you think? Yeah, I mean,
there are a few barriers at the moment. For example, pricing it. People don't really know how to price it properly, and lots of the main suppliers have changed their pricing models quite considerably over the last 5 years, or withdrawn the offering and then brought it back. So, I mean, that is still a barrier. For example, I mean, so they're either charging a subscription model, or they're trying to treat the mobile credential like a physical credential that can expire. And some people are just giving it away for free and trying to make the money back on the hardware sale. So, I mean, there's no clear winner there at the moment.
Yeah, there's a lot of like service options too, or you can do complete managed services, or just opening doors, basically just getting stuff off site.
Absolutely.
Yeah, and Blake, in your world, what are some of the things that are shaping our industry? What are some of the research that you got your eye on?
Right, we just published a report on remote monitoring, so we looked at monitoring subscribers and how the transition from traditional monitoring, where you don't have an app and it's just hooked up to the central station, and then the transition into connected alarm monitoring where you have a mobile app. And I think in the U.S. there are about 28 million monitored accounts, and of that about 30% were connected systems. So being able to arm and disarm from a mobile app. And then, within about 5 years, we actually expect that the connected systems are going to equate to about 60% of those accounts. So it's really going to be a huge transition, and even more so on the kind of interactive security transitioning into true home automation where, systems, it's not just an arm and disarm of security sensors or viewing video. More and more systems are going to start to have thermostats and door locks and, other types of lighting, whether it be light bulbs or light plugs. So really, it's kind of right now, it's about, in 2017, about 30% of the monitoring market was connected, and of that connected, only about 30% were home automation. But we're going to start to see those really start to ramp up in the next 5 years.
Right, and sticking with you, Blake, so that's going to be good news for the industry, right, and dealers. This is just, it's going to be a continued growth in this area, would you say?
Right, it's going to be continued growth because a lot of dealers it's a bit of a struggle because, you want the RMR element, but you're really being able to find opportunities to go back to the customer and find ways of these added services and concierge services where, even going into cyber monitoring where you can, check whether or not a customer is adding a device to the platform, and then being able to contact that customer and ask them if they need support, adding that light bulb or adding the camera to the network, things like that. So there's just a lot of more opportunities, with the connected home to get engaged with the consumer, and it's just going to increase, RMR. I think that in certain cases, as more DIY systems come on board, margins, may be impacted, but it's just the model that's going to happen. You see all the device makers here, at the show. There's a lot of systems that are even tailored towards DIY, where you actually you can get from a dealer, you can buy essentially a box of devices for around $250, as a consumer, and then get that professionally monitored or install it yourself, things like that.
Another thing we're seeing actually in the consumer industry is more buying the solution at the retail store and then having it professionally installed by some other entity.
That's an interesting dynamic.
Hadn't really happened before.
Yeah, that's different, right? And that's something that the industry's kind of trying to figure out, the whole DIY concept, right? What's your take? I know a lot, some companies are worried that DIY is going to take a bite of their pie, but what's your take on DIY, especially Blake? I know this is something that you're well versed in.
Yeah, so it's only out of the 25, 26 million or so monitored accounts in the U.S. Only about 900,000 are monitored in that manner. So monitored by the folks who install the system themselves and then have it professionally monitored. So essentially, you might get the security system in the mail, and then you would install yourself, and then you would hook it up to a central station. Those systems are pretty small today. We expect it to continue to grow, but just that dynamic of the DIY system where people are getting the package of devices so that you don't have to go to a retail store and figure it out. Everything's prepackaged, very easy to use, things like that. I think that it can't be ignored. I think that still, you occasionally hear people try to dismiss DIY or even the MSOs like Comcast, and you can't dismiss it anymore. It's a fact, and if you're not willing to embrace it to a certain extent, you're probably going to be left behind.
Yeah, I totally agree.
Plug and play is something that's really improved tremendously the prospects for the DIY market. I mean, I was talking to one of the big suppliers here, and they were telling me 5 years ago they had a DIY intrusion offering that they tried to sell through a very popular big retailer, and they said the return rates were astronomical. And this was over 5 years ago when it was more difficult for end users to set up the system. Now, some end users can have their systems up and running in 2 hours with a quick tutorial on YouTube. And I mean, the other thing that we have now in the DIY market that we didn't really have before is the option of professional monitoring for a DIY system.
Right.
So, and these are typically more flexible than some of the guys that we've seen before as well. So, having the option to activate the system and have it professionally monitored for a month or 2 weeks and then turn it off again. Something that wasn't available before that kind of solves one of the issues with DIY systems.
It's like an on-demand monitoring type of situation, is that?
Right. Yeah. So there's systems like that, like the Arlo camera. You can they're on Viv compliant now for their Pro device, and we're starting to see a lot more of these consumer devices move into even small medium business, like Alexa for business, things like that.
Yeah, good point.
So it's going to be interesting, how these do-it-yourself systems can really aid dealers, and like I said, it's not going to be going away anytime soon. Yeah,
you're right about that. All right, guys. Well, good stuff. Thank you. I appreciate the time, and have a Have a good rest of the show. Thank you.
Thank
Very
you.
much.